Let me officially welcome you all to this second edition of US Nigeria Business Council Business Talk session. And today we want to focus on job creation. And the purpose of this webinar is not just to talk, not just to enjoy each other's company, but we want to focus on issues that affect Nigeria, issues that affect our businesses, our business environments, issues that will help us to grow in our respective endeavors. And right now, it's a major focus on job creation in Nigeria. There's been a lot of complaints about not having jobs. There's been a lot of concerns about people being underemployed, and there's even more concern about the future of employment and job creation in Nigeria. So today we want to take a deep dive, and we have seasoned speakers that's going to address this specifically. And what we want to do also is, at the end of the discussion today, we want to go to take a deep dive. We plan to prepare a position paper and send this to respective offices in government and in the private sector. So let me officially welcome you all to this session, and let me also welcome members of the media that are here today, and welcome friends from Nigeria, from the US, from UK, and from around the world. So at this point, I look forward to a very engaging session. We look up to sharing our thoughts extensively. And we want to hand over now to the most qualified, the most eloquent, the most erudite, and the most persuasive moderator we have across the aisle. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Mokpiliola Amosu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sometimes when he speaks about me, I wonder who he's talking about. I must restate that I am honored to anchor this business talk again. Thank you for the opportunity. I thank God. I'm very happy to hand over this ship to him, the only captain who can ensure that it sails successfully. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are in the world joining us, you are welcome to the second US-Nigeria Business Council's bi-monthly webinar series. If you missed the last one, go to the YouTube channel of the US-Nigeria Business Council and view it there. What benefits should you expect as a participant in these webinars? Well, first of all, give insights into the guest resource person's thoughts, because they are thought leaders in the business community in Nigeria and globally. Then you will be able to network with key stakeholders in the US and in the Nigerian business communities, and you'll be able to explore new opportunities for collaboration and partnership. You will also stay updated on latest trends and developments in trade, investment, and economic relations between the two countries. We also hope that you in the audience will play an active role and be a part of generating actionable insights and recommendations for this encounter. We want you to contribute nuggets that can inform policy decisions on the part of government and investment strategies on the part of the invest. And I always say this, that you are in the right place if you want to get solutions to the challenges entrepreneurs find in the business environment. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. They are willing, they are yielded, they have no fear of disrupting the status quo in any sector. They are humble persons with a passion for solving the frictions in their society. They are empathetic to the pain of people. So if you are currently a career person, but desire to start a business of your own, you need to know that whatever you sell will only be valued by potential users if it solves problems. This is the problem-solving platform. Then you will say very proudly that you have joined the ranks of job creators. So, The theme for today's webinar, Job Creation in Nigeria, a closer analysis of strategies and methodologies that give results. But first of all, what are the issues with job creation in Nigeria? But we can't speak about this without having statistics. Now, whether you're in Nigeria or not, or Nigerian or not, you know that the only place that we can go for official statistics on anything is the NBS, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. So I'm going to just very quickly, because it's not all gloom and doom, but it's not very encouraging, but I'm going to do it anyway. The survey, the quarter 2 2023 survey, that's April to June 2023 survey of the Nigerian labor force done by the NBS, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Quick highlights. 1, the employment to population ratio was 77.1%. 2, the combined rate of unemployment and time-related underemployment as a share of the labor force population was 15.5%. I want you to take note of these numbers. We may write them down because it's going to help our discussions this evening. 3, about 88% of workers were in self-employment. The proportion of workers in wage employment was noted as 12%. Now, the rate of unemployment amongst persons with post-secondary education was 8%. The unemployment rate amongst youth who are aged between 16 and 24 years was 7.2%. The unemployment rate in urban areas is 5.9%. 8% of working age population were in subsistence agriculture. Informal employment rate was 92.7%. Now, the percentage of youth not in employment, education, or training, which is also referred to as NEET, employed, but these are broken down into self-employed, wage employed, and informally employed. These are the categories I raised from the NBS report. And then, of course, there's the without employment, education, or training. And then we had urban to rural ratios, and then you had working age to youth population. Now that that's clear, let's look at the issues. The first is with the government, and then I'm going to come to the business, the business people, the business community. Is government giving us enough conducive policies, such as land use, taxation, infrastructure, road, rail, power, water supply, investment in human capital, startup capital, etc.? I'm talking about the banks now. Are they lending to incentivize the growth and development of businesses, especially SMEs? What can the CBN? I want you to keep these questions in mind, because these are things that I hope will tease the conversations later on. What can the CBN do to make the business environment more conducive and coax economic growth? Clearly, the CBN hike of interest rates hurts the economy. Its high interest rates is causing borrowing from banks to be prohibitive, and funds are not available or accessible to businesses and consumers. So commercial activity is being stunted. These are things that affect job creation ultimately. Can it be that the high interest rates are meant to attract foreign investors, portfolio investors here, who are fly-by-night investors? They have short-term investments which benefits only them and the bankers. What role are the government research agencies playing? Because I'm sure that if more businesses could draw on data and the resources supplied by agencies such as NICER, NASENI, they'll probably do better in providing jobs. The other question is government invariably the largest employer of labor, directly or indirectly, in every nation? Because some people have argued that, contrary to popular opinion, we do not have a bloated workforce at the federal or the state levels. Rather, they are saying we have wrong allocation of manpower. Let's consider that. And then, what's role corruption, which has led to inefficiency? It affects official decision-making. How do we make governments more transparent in making purely economic decisions? Some say that if people in government could envisage how much wealth they could generate from a growing economy, many of them will probably resign and go into business and become employers of labor. Do we have a listening government? I'm going to just flip through this because I won't take so much of the time. And then how effective are the so-called government initiatives for skill development? Okay, are they looking at education, focusing on STEM fields? Are they just doing the old pre-colonial education? Are they focusing on infrastructure, on security? Are they combating fraud, money laundering, drug trafficking, banditry? All these things ultimately affect job creation. And then quickly, let's go to the business environment. Some very optimistic thinkers believe that the opportunities in Nigeria are vast. Why? Because there's a shortage of everything. Therefore, there is market for everything. Okay, so let's look at that. Some open that with the right plan, Nigeria can build internal capacity and leverage internal resources to thrive. Just like the Chinese economy was transformed primarily by local, not foreign investments. There's general consensus that we need to set a pathway for employment-related issues in Nigeria. Is it true that the entrepreneurial prowess of Nigerians is at par with Indians and Chinese? Because it seems that they're taking over here anyway. But that the economies of these countries continue to grow at astronomical levels because their governments consistently create the enabling environment that unleashes the potentials of their citizens. And of course, we can't forget the Japa phenomenon. Okay? Now, I'm just going to wrap this preview up with what the perception is of international organizations of the Nigerian economy. 3 organizations. The first is the World Bank. But according to the World Bank, more than 87 million people in Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, live below the poverty line. Okay? Second after India. A country 7 times Nigeria's size, by the way. According to the IMF, last month, the state has started subsidizing fuel again. Though the government has not acknowledged this, Zainab Usman, a political economist and director of the Africa program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, has this to say, and I quote, "There's still very little clarity, if any, on where the economy, that's the Nigerian economy, is headed, what the priorities are." So there's a little bit of confusion out there. The third organization is the Africa Development Bank. In their 2022 Nigeria Economic Outlook, although it's shrouded in figures related to a fall in real GDP growth, shrinkage in overall industry, decline in income per capita, a 2-decade high inflation rate of fueled by energy and food price increases, a multi-dimensional poverty rate of 63%, unemployment rate of 33.3%. Generally, the bank's perception of the Nigerian economy is not less gloom and doom than the reports of the other international organizations. So please pay attention, because there's a lot that we hope to learn today. We have a Zoom room of problem solvers who are poised to analyze the root causes to job creation in Nigeria and to share their well thought out strategies to ameliorate these challenges. 2, we expect, we hope they will suggest policy reforms which can address infrastructure deficits, enhance competitiveness, and combat competition. We also hope they will explore opportunities for community-based industrialization for robust job creation. Also, finally, that they will share stories with us of global best practices in fostering inclusive growth and job creation. Now, before we go on to invite our speakers, let's just go through very quickly some ground rules and Zoom etiquette so that we're all on the same page. This is how these proceedings will go. Our first speaker will have 20 minutes to present on the subject matter. Then, as a participant, you will get a chance to ask a question one question only per participant at the end of his presentation, either by raising a digital hand or by typing in the chat box. This whole process will take 10 minutes. Subsequently, after the Q&A, our second speaker will have 20 minutes to present his case. And once again, you will have a chance, if you're in the audience, to ask questions over a 10-minute window. Now, if you raise your hand and your question was already answered in the course of the presentation, please put your hand down. We're trying to manage the time as much as possible. And then keep your question short and to the point. You have only 2 minutes. There is a timekeeper who will mute you. We are a house of honor, but we are also a house of discipline. We also ask that you keep your microphone mute until you are invited to ask a question or make a comment. At the end of your contribution, do not forget to mute yourself. Now, if you're engaged in doing other things during this webinar, please turn off your video so that you don't distract other participants. Now, we can let this ship sail. I am truly honored to introduce our first speaker this evening. Take a breath, though. A graduate of Alabama State University, our first speaker can be adjudged. He has a proven track record of delivering cutting-edge products and services that enhance efficiency, security, and customer satisfaction. He managed 2 publicly traded companies, one of which is the East Coast Diversified Corporation, which traded on NASDAQ. Having gained traction as one who builds tech products, he was published in the New York Times as one of the early pioneers of commercial GPS technology. One of his entrepreneurial pursuits is development of Student Connect, a software-as-a-service application for monitoring and protecting student bus riders getting on and off school buses, which was deployed in several countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Lebanon, and the United States. Another feather in his cap is the development and skillful management of the first national emergency system in Nigeria, the Hawkeye Crime Management and Reporting System. He spearheaded numerous other technology products, such as the integration of GPS with active RFID. As a pioneer for African Americans in technology, he has been published in various magazines, including the Black Enterprise magazine and the Atlanta Tribune, both of the USA. Mr. Oluwakayode Adepoju Aladeshuyi is the founder and CEO of My AI Robotics, an artificial intelligence and robotic engineering firm that creates innovative AI solutions for various industries and sectors. He also serves as the Chief Creative Officer with responsibility for managing the functional design and user experience for product development. He leads and guides the organization's ethical policies regarding development of artificial intelligence. A visionary leader who holds various trademarks and patents both in the USA and Nigeria, he is driven by his mission to create positive social change through AI and robotics. Now, as I hand over the floor to Mr. Aladeshuyi, let us all sit back, listen, and learn. Over to you, sir. You have 20 minutes. Mr. Aladeshuyi, you're welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I actually don't know what to say. It's quite a lengthy introduction. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to sit in front of each and every one of you to give you my opinion of employment in Nigeria. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And I will share with you very briefly what led me to thinking very deeply, taking a deep thought into this subject. I started coming to Nigeria in 2016 and to work with the Nigerian police force. Each morning I would go jogging. And one of the things that I noticed that disturbed me significantly was I would see a pool of young men standing in corners in various neighborhoods as I go jogging. I will stop and talk to them and find out exactly why they are just loitering around. And I discovered that none of them had jobs and they were suffering tremendously. So I began to think about how do we solve this problem? And that's led me to creating what I refer to today as the Firestarter Economic Development Project, which ideas I hope to share with you today and get your views and opinion on it. Hope everybody can see my screen. This Firestarter Economic Development Plan is an idea that I came up with in 2016. If everybody knows what it means to have a fire start, it technically means you start a fire and it spread like what is spread across the entire area. My objective is to create a fire in job creation that will be ignited and will spread across the country. That's what this entire job creation program is all about. And I will not go too deep into the background of how I got this started since we have a limited time. I will go into the subject matter directly. Why do we have poverty in Nigeria? More than 3/4 of Nigerians work in establishments that engage in fewer than 5 people, which means most of the people that are employed in Nigeria are sole proprietors. Okay, almost half of Nigerians are estimated to live below poverty line. However, you also hear that unemployment is only 5%. So you begin to wonder, how can so many people be in poverty if you only have 5% of unemployment? Well, the reason for that is 84% of those jobs are created by small, medium enterprises, sole proprietors, so to say. And only 1.5 out of every 10 Nigerians are somewhere where they have a job and they get a paycheck. That's very significant. That means people do not have jobs. That means people are left to create their own employment. And this was one of the key things that concerned me about the employment level in Nigeria. And to follow that up, even when many Nigerians are working, they remain poor because the jobs that they are doing is not jobs that can sustain their quality of life. Petty trading, petty craftsmanship that they do on the side. So we have a large pool of unemployed Nigerians in the marketplace. I did some market research. Some of my data are very similar to those that have been presented to us here already. Okay? And this was a data that was published by the World Bank and said the highest form of entrepreneurship in Nigeria is entrepreneurs of necessity. This is why we have poverty. The definition of entrepreneurs of necessity are people that can't find jobs. They don't have a means of sustenance. So they must go out and create their own jobs. There are 3 types of entrepreneurs in the marketplace. You have entrepreneurs of innovation. These are people that want to solve problems. You have entrepreneurs of opportunity. These are people that see opportunity to make money. And then you have entrepreneurs of necessity. The type of entrepreneurs mostly created in Nigeria are entrepreneurs of necessity. They can be productive, part of the economy. But most times, generally, they contribute very, very little to the economy. Unfortunately, when you hear the Nigerian government talk about supporting entrepreneurs, a few months ago, without mentioning, the Nigerian government distributed, I believe, about 20 billion naira to entrepreneurs at a rate of 50,000 naira per entrepreneur. The question that crossed my mind was, what does a business do with 50,000 naira? We basically took 20 billion naira and flushed it down the toilet. In my perspective, that was what happened because all of these guys are entrepreneurs of necessity. they're not contributing anything to the economy. Then I looked at some other reports to kind of get a good handle of the employment, the state of employment in Nigeria. We have 41 million micro, small, medium enterprises. 41,500,000. When you look at the numbers on the chart, of those 41,500,000, 41,400,000 are micro businesses. Micro businesses are employers that have 1 to 9 employees. And the small businesses have 9 to 200 employees. And then the medium enterprises have over 200 employees. So basically, of the 41,500,000 so-called entrepreneurs in Nigeria, 41,400,000 of them are sole proprietors, who a majority of them can be classified as entrepreneurs of necessity. That means they're only receiving money from government to pay their bills. They're not contributing to the economy. So one of the first things we've got to do is get the government to look at how it's distributing resources to make sure it effectively creates jobs in the environment. Now, those are the statistics I want to share with you as regard to what's already on the ground. What I want to do now is go into what I consider to be my fire starter program, in which I believe, and I hope most of you will join me at the end of this presentation, we can create over 17 million jobs in Nigeria in the next 12 to 18 months. And here we go. And here's how it works. A dual job creation program, a national job creation plan that will employ Nigerians across the entire country, regardless of where you live, regardless of ethnicity. If you have the skill and you are employable for employers to hire you, the government will facilitate ability for employers to hire at will. And I will talk about that program in just a minute. The second set of employment is one that creates the foundation for industrialization, creating a skilled workforce. We have so many unskilled people just on the street, creating a program where we can train this group of people in job program, 90-day training program, whether to assemble TVs, to assemble refrigerator, to work in an auto manufacturing plant, those kind of blue worker job. We need a blue worker skilled workforce that can help Nigeria in its industrialization objective. So we got to run two parallel tracks. One is very important to helping the other. The National Job Creation Plan is very critical. It is the fire starter. The skilled workforce plan is what takes us into industrialization. And here's how the program goes. In a lot of climates, in a lot of countries, you have something that they call credit or job tax credit, depending on where you are. This is a program in which government will encourage businesses to create jobs. In exchange for creating jobs, the government will give you tax credit, will give you credit for any taxes that you owe on your payroll for those employees, or any taxes that you need to pay on those employees, you receive credit for them to offset your corporate tax. We used it here in 2008 when we had a recession in the US to help create jobs. So I looked at this program and thought about it, and I said, well, it won't work in Nigeria because a lot of businesses are not registered with FIRS. In fact, I had a conversation with a former FIRS director who told me it would not work in Nigeria because a lot of businesses are not are registered with FIRS. Therefore, they're not going to be paying taxes. They don't have tax obligation that will be offset. So I changed the program from a job tax credit to a job credit program, which means if you hire, the government will give you credit, okay, for the salary of those employees. One of the things that I wanted to do with this program is that we shouldn't just create jobs. We should create jobs that can drive our economy. We should create jobs that can develop a middle-class society, because most economies that are successful are driven by middle-class society. Nigeria have the oddest triangle that I've ever seen in business, because at the top, it's narrow. It gets slightly wider in the middle for middle class, then it expands at an angle at the bottom, which is very wide. If we can increase the middle class society, we can begin to solve a lot of the problems that we have in our economy. So my plan will call for the government to provide job credit to any employer that needs to hire people with a minimum guarantee credit of 120,000 naira. This job guarantee program will go for 3 years. This tax credit is paid through what I call convertible tax credit. And I will get into that in a minute, because a lot of these businesses are not profitable yet. However, you will see a great majority of them have been growing over the years. They've been in business for 3, 4, 5 years, have the ability to grow, who are struggling. And one of the biggest expense that most businesses have, including myself, is payroll. So what are we doing? Instead of the government just giving money out to businesses, we say, okay, the money we're going to give you is going to be in the form of job credit. We want you to hire people in your business to grow your business. That's how we're going to fund you. Then on the side, we can create government guaranteed loans that can also with your operational expenses. So in the first year, you get 100% salary credit. In the second year, 75%, and in the third year, 50%. Why is this? We want to make sure we maintain these jobs for at least 2-3 years so they can be built into the business operation. They can become a part of that business operation so the employers don't lay them off after the first year. On the skilled workforce side, the government commitment is going to be a 3 to 6 month training program to train 3 million industrial workforce at a commitment of 150,000 naira for each trainee. The government should commit to pay 90,000 naira to a training institution for each student. That means the school will receive 90,000, whether you're training to be plumbers, to be electrician, to be solar power installers, to be assembly worker in a factory, you will receive 90,000 naira to train them. While in training, the employee themselves will be paid 60,000 naira as work trainings for a 3-month period. The total cost of this project for the training, 270 billion naira. 3 months training wage for all 3 million industrial workforce, 540 million naira. In total, Nigeria will spend 270.5 billion naira to industrialize itself. That's much less than loans that we borrow annually from other countries. So if we're going to change our country, we must make determination to invest in our country. And that's what these 2 programs will do. Why 2 programs? The first program, the National Job Creation Plan. When you look at the statistics and the numbers, how do we create 12 million jobs? 41 million micro, small, medium enterprises. According to PwC Nigeria research in 2023, the 31% of these businesses experienced growth in excess of 20% over the last 3 years. What does that tell me? 31% of those micro, small, and medium enterprises have been in business for at least 3 years. What does that tell me? They are stable. This is the group that we want to target to create jobs. This is the group that the government should go after. Not just them, larger organizations, the Dangotes and the Nigerian breweries, any organization in Nigeria can participate in this program. Which, if we were just to focus on the SMEs, 31% of them represent 12 million new jobs if each one of them were to hire just one new staff. I want you guys to think about that for 1 second. 12 million jobs at 120,000 naira. 12 million jobs. When you create this job, but the first question I get from a lot of people is, how does this work? How does the business get money? You're asking them to create program. You have the job, convertible job credit. The way it works is very simple. Once you hire people, you must file your return monthly. You must submit documents that shows you've hired these people. Your submission will also show that you've made a deposit directly into those accounts with the associated BVN to avoid fraudulent situations. I won't go into the security measures involved. I'm in the tech business. I know exactly what we need to do to make sure people cannot defraud the system. Once you submit this to your state, you file your return, you get a report from your return that you can submit to the FIRS. The FIRS give you a certificate of credit allowance. I am recommending creating a program called Tax Credit Exchange Market. Basically, you bring this tax credit certificate to the exchange market and you register it. Large organizations such as Coca-Cola, just such as Dangote, and all of the other major companies that pay billions of naira in taxes every year can come to the exchange. They can buy this tax credit at 5-10% discount to reduce their tax obligation and thereby pumping cash into small businesses in Nigeria. What I have done is very simple. I'm attempting to avoid the inflationary effect of creating jobs at 120,000 by not asking the government to increase wages and salary. I have also attempted to avoid bringing new cash into the economy by not telling the businesses to take their tax credit to CBN to get cash. I am recycling money that's already in the economy. So large organizations that own 2 billion naira can come to the exchange, pull together a bunch of small businesses that have tax credit, buy it at 10%, give them cash, and reduce its tax obligation. The result is that these businesses are funded for their labor. They're able to grow their operations and their businesses, and the economy the fire begin to spread. How? Very, very simple. The social impact, first and foremost, is that when you create jobs at 120,000, because we also have to think about nation building when we talk about creating jobs. It's very, very important because our social structure is fractured and we must repair it. And we can use job creation to repair it. First of all, when you create jobs, when people have a job, crime rate drops. That's the first thing. The second thing you get in an economy where men can find jobs is that you see an increase in marriage rate. When people start to get married in a pool of potential workforce, male and female start to get married, the average family income becomes 240,000 naira and not 120,000 naira. What you'd eventually done is you create a lower middle class society. We all know almost every Nigerian have a side gig on the side. So we're going to assume that with your side gig, your family income now on the average is 300,000 naira, $3.6 million at naira a month. The first thing that would happen, because this has never happened in Nigeria before, you will see the first ever alignment between the government and the people. The shock wave across the country that the government is creating jobs and paying people will shock the entire nation. The effect is positive realignment between government and the people. That's when we begin nation building. Because what happens socially is that the guys that's agitating for separation, whether in the southeast or southwest or northeast or north, Northwest, begin to look at the central government as representative of its own interest. Our Nigerianness as a country, as a nation begins to grow. We begin to think as one people. Job can actually transform Nigeria if it's done right. Economic impact. Increase in demand for goods and services will explode across the entire country, because now you have families with 300,000 naira a month, people that were making 20,000 naira. New and foreign companies see a society with disposable income, and they will be attracted to this. The government then must create incentive. What have we created? 3-year job tax credit. I'm also going to recommend energy tax credit. The government just received a 750 million World Bank fund for alternative energy. Use it to credit for businesses to power their factories and their operation. Provide other incentives such as rebate for importation of raw materials that are not available in Nigeria, at least for the first 2 years, to attract foreign companies to come into the market. Market this program to diasporas to move back home and start businesses and operation. What you're going to get is the development of a diversified export economy, because now you have industry that are coming in because we have all these people with money, demand for goods and services. I can imagine what would happen to an organization like Dangote when the government create policies that begin to make this really work. Now we're giving money for productivity. We're not giving money to people and say, go and find something doing. We're giving money for, you must hire someone to get this money. What does that mean? It impacts the FX rate, because the GDP, it's reflected in the GDP, and it begins to impact the FX rate. When the FX rate begins to come down, inflation rate also decline. Now, what are the government policies to drive this economic growth and industrialization? I think, based on the plan that I developed, we should adopt the government's plan for a national credit facility for all citizens. And here's how we begin. Now we've created jobs. Now we have families that are averaging 300,000 naira a month, a large pool of population. And the government say, okay, we're going to allow payroll deduction if you're buying high value items like home, apartments, and you're buying cars. So guys, take a step back. Imagine this Nigerian population that is so impoverished today. And suddenly you create this program, they're getting married, and you have the credit facility. A guy that's living under the bridge suddenly can buy an apartment, can go to innocent vehicle and buy a car, and it comes directly out of his paycheck directly to the bank, where the government can also stipulate that, hey, you can only spend maybe 45% of your take-home pay on buying a house or a car. Just imagine what happens to the real estate industry in Nigeria. Think for a minute what happened to Innocent Vehicle. Innocent Vehicle become one of the largest auto manufacturers in the world, including some of the other vehicle assembly companies that are popping up across the country to meet the demand that this program can create. And when you adopt this energy tax credit, a lot of the factories who may end up increasing salaries and wages for their employee business can be offset by the energy tax credit that you're giving them, because we know most businesses are now saying about 30% of their operating cost is energy cost. By providing them with energy tax credit, you are offsetting the labor cost increase. You are mitigating inflationary effect of creating this middle class. Nigeria begins to grow. And that's the key to my entire economic development plan. Now, there are geopolitical implications that Nigeria has to aggressively take advantage of. First of all, I want to inform everybody in this meeting, there are 3 other countries like Nigeria in the world. Only three: the United States of America, China, and Russia. All of these three countries dominate their economic hemisphere completely. Nigeria dominates West and Central Africa. We've never taken advantage of that natural gift that God gave us to be a dominant economy in our hemisphere. We should do it. However, we must remember, this is going to put us in direct conflict with China, which is not of power. Nigeria location on the equation, if you take the map of the world and you spread it on the ground, left, east to west, north to south, you will end up in the middle of Nigeria. Nigeria is at the center of the world. What does that mean to us economically? Product manufactured in Nigeria can reach 80% of the global market 2 weeks faster than China. We are the greatest direct threat to Chinese economic domination in the manufacturing space is Nigeria. Because if we take that opportunity and we become a manufacturing hub for Nigeria, for the world, we'll take on China. The relationship between Nigeria and its West African and Central African neighbor must become a high priority, because for us to dislodge China, our neighbors must import from us. We have a natural export market in our hemisphere, but it's been encroached upon by China. So Nigeria should strategically strengthen ECOWAS. Nigeria should push aggressively for that single currency so it can control the West and Central African economy and squarely push China out of that region of the world. To me, if we take these steps, not only will our economy become robust, I would almost bet that in 10 years, we will rival some of the biggest economies in Europe. Thank you.
I don't know what to say, but I'm going to try and say something. I must admit that this is the first time that I'm privileged to hear such innovative and disruptive solutions with direct relevance to improving the living conditions of the average Nigerian. Thank you, Mr. Ladeshi. Thank you once again. I am not going to try and summarize what you said. I just know that you redefined entrepreneurship for me. You talked about entrepreneurs by necessity, entrepreneurs by innovation, and entrepreneurs by opportunity. Thank you.
Yes.
You talked about creating 70 million jobs in the next 18 months, and then you broke down how precisely, you would love to do that. I remember one of the things on the wall, one of the suggestions was that Mr. Tinubu had said he was going to create so many jobs, and he didn't say how. Thank you for telling us how, especially with this 90-day technical skill training, which is geared to industrialization. You also talked about a kind of subsidy to fund payroll for job creators. Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask anybody in the audience if you have a question to ask you. I'm just awed. I just sat back and I was learning. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to ask a question? Teresa, any raised hands? There was just a comment there.
Yes, I saw a comment from Mr. Adoki. I can address that.
Oh,
he was concerned about civil servants and how civil servants can negatively impact this. Let me say this. One of the beautiful things about this administration, and I have to confess, I'm a fan of three of the ministers in this administration. One of those is Bosun Tijani. I'm a serious fan, and Minister Ojo, both of whom have demonstrated significant level of competence. This project cannot be taken to any ministries. This is a presidential project that must be managed by a presidential task force. Mm-hmm. It's not part of your economic development plan. It's not part of what your ministry of this and ministry of that will do. No, this is a presidential project, a presidential task force with unfettered access to anything that they need to implement. So this program will work independent of civil service. We're not hiring for government. We're dealing with private enterprises. We're creating jobs for the entire country. We don't need. So I'm very comfortable that when it comes to making sure this work effectively, we have Boston Tijani that can create the necessary application to make sure we have a smooth implementation. We have Mr. Ojo, who is shown admirable competence in managing large operational projects. So I'm very, very comfortable with this. In terms of promoting this to the global market, the person that I think about, I'm not a fan of him, but I respect his skills and capability, is the Minister of Aviation. You give him a mic and you send him to the world, and he will speak until everybody listens to us, and he will promote Nigeria. If you give me those three people and you give me a green light for this project, Nigeria will become a different country in 3 years.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions before we move on?
Yes, Ms. Badawan.
Oh, actually, I was just going to encourage to call on Mr. Olufemi Boyede. I'll be very interested in what he has to say. That's all.
Okay. His hand is raised, is it?
Yes, we have 3 hands up.
Okay, fine. Mr. Boyede, please go ahead. You have the floor. Unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me.
Definitely.
Yes, sir, clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy that I was able to listen to this very erudite, very comprehensive, and very clear pathway to economic growth, empowerment, rejuvenation. It's not a question really I have. It's probably an advice based on experience. The presenter, the promoter of this blueprint, probably would be good to understand that in Nigeria, it will take you probably 10 years to get such a fantastic blueprint adopted to operate individually and outside the existing structures. Government projects are usually warehoused with an existing agency. And because this has to do with employment creation and what have you, while I think that Ministry of Labor will be a little bit so bogus, I would imagine that somewhere like the ITF, which I think is under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, probably if the USA Nigeria Council, and of course we have people like Dr. Adejugbe Williams here, I think that you might be better advised and probably achieve it faster. If you could get introduced to the Director General, I don't know him, but I think that is somebody who, like those you have mentioned, is also forward-looking. If you don't have a particular, if it's not being driven by a particular agency, it takes that much longer to work your way and get it adopted and the task force created. I know all this, of course, I have worked with 3 industry, trade and investment in Nigeria, and I know that it's so difficult. This is a very brilliant idea. This is very workable. This is more like a fast track to economic growth. And I applaud the presenter and also thank the organizers for giving vent to this kind of presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi Boyede. Now let's call Aisha Digi. Do I get your name right? Aisha, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Good evening to you all. And right now I'm in Kampala in Uganda. Thank you, presenter. for the great highlights. Mine is more of a comment, and probably you'll comment about it too, that I have listened to your presentation, though I joined in a little late. I've spent more than 2 decades dealing with the issue of growth, development, and employment from the private sector perspective, and collaborating with governments across the continent, across the world, and also civil society. However, I'll start with one statement that I picked, that China, Russia are taking over the market, if I heard rightly, and Nigeria should be taking over these opportunities.
That's correct.
And the first impression that comes to my mind as a global international investor and entrepreneur is, in the perspective of global and regional integration and cooperation for trade, we don't advocate for chasing away or alienating any country, but work on ourselves. I've been to Nigeria several times, and I've been to a number of states. I have invested in Nigeria in quite a number of sectors. But I've also had a study and understood dynamics within Nigeria over a couple of years, even before the incumbent president, Excellency Tinubu. Governance is one of the issues that has to be tackled across the spectrum, whether within the private sector, whether within the government itself, or whether within the civil society. Then also, the issues around when you say that you want to create employment, many people think of government, but the government is overcrowded and it won't employ everybody.
Sir,
private sector.
May I just interrupt for a minute? We're going to have a group discussion after. This question and answer session is if you have a question, a specific question to Mr. Ladeshui. We're going to have a group discussion which will involve the audience at the end of the second speaker's speech. Do you have a question?
Okay, let me get to the question.
Okay, now just give us the question so we can answer. We can move on. We have a time constraint. We can hold your conversation until the group discussion, the open discussion. Can we do that?
I'm going to ask the question.
Okay, please go ahead and ask the question only, because you really only had 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Is the strategy to increasing employment a matter of alienating other countries?
No.
Or is it a strategy?
Okay,
no.
Mr. Ladeshui, would you like to address
your
that?
own
Okay, absolutely
issues?
not. Absolutely not. 2 things. Creating jobs domestically is to energize our industry internally and bring other companies outside of Nigeria to come to Nigeria to manufacture. The part of China that I was talking about is not necessarily alienating China. What I said in my statement was the relationship with our neighbors becomes very critical. For example, I'll give you a quick example. We deliver power to Ghana. And last month or this month sometime, we stopped distribution and Ghana will be out of power for about 3 weeks. Something like that was on the news. We have to be very sensitive to those kind of activities because we want Ghana, when factories open up in Nigeria to make solar panel, we want Ghana programs for its citizens to order from Nigeria and not from China. We don't necessarily need to alienate China, but we need to strengthen our relationship with our neighbors as a powerhouse in the entire region. We need to structure a relationship in such a way that we are the first choice for everybody. We are the go-to market for our neighbors. That's the whole plan. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question here for you, sir, from Dorcas James. She's asked, how do we get the MSMEs to be aware so we move from policy to implementation? Because information at the grassroots is important and cannot be overemphasized. Would you like to address that, sir?
Yes. Again, I'm going to rely on one minister in particular, which is Minister Bosun Tijani. I'm a great fan of this gentleman, maybe because I'm also in IT. But getting information to the SME is not that difficult. They have organizations that disseminate information to them. We have the National Orientation Agency that can be powered to disseminate information across the country. We have state government. This is very important. The state government themselves, understanding that the federal government have rolled out a plan, should take it upon themselves to educate SMEs and citizens in their states to become participants in this program so they can elevate the economic condition of their people. So there are so many different ways to get this message across to the SMEs and across the country to begin the process.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I'm afraid we can't take any more questions from Mr. Ladichi because we have to move on with the program. It's getting kind of late. Whatever questions you have, please hold them at the end of the presentations. When we have the open discussion, you can bring up your questions. Please understand with us. Now, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this advert from one of our sponsors. Thank you. Welcome back. Our second speaker tonight is no doubt another man of enviable accomplishment. He is founder, majority owner, and chief executive officer of Nibiru Footwear Company, headquartered in Singapore and operating across Western Africa. The company has branded retail, distribution, and institutional footwear businesses in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and Angola, with plans to add high-volume manufacturing. Started as a franchise of Bata Shoe Company, Nibiru has launched its own brands. For 2 years, from September 2011, he was the Chief Executive Officer of DHL Global Forwarding for Western Africa, a position for which his strong background in the oil and gas and mining sectors prepared him well to lead and aggressively grow the organization's business in West Africa, where there is a strong focus on these sectors. Through his work at DHL, he turned around 7 out of 9 loss-making countries in 2011 to only 1 in 2012. Record profits were posted in 5 countries, including Angola. He improved the quality of the management team in the Western Africa region, with key changes in personnel and significant restructuring in some of the countries. He championed key growth investments in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria. He rolled out what was termed Strategy 2015 plans in the region, with special focus on Angola and Nigeria as key growth drivers focused on oil and gas industry. He also successfully spearheaded the re-awarding of the largest industrial project contracts worldwide for the company by BP Angola, as well as similar opportunities with Shell, Total, and Chevron. This growth is positive that the continent can create immense opportunity for companies that can execute effectively. Engineer Chizi Nnamchi has extensive international business management exposure, covering Asia Pacific as Director, Oil and Gas Business for 3M Company based in Singapore. There, over a period of 18 years, he was able to quickly develop corporate exclusive brand outlets in oil and gas, which reached a revenue of $500 million, and another stream in mining with profit margins of $250 million. In his own words, Engineer Nnamchi states, "My dream," I quote, "my dream was to build $1 billion business as part of a startup team," end of quote. He says what made his stay at 3M an amazing experience was, quote, "navigating the large corporate environment, very competitive and full of innovative ideas, to gain visibility and resources for my project, assembling the team, developing and executing a strategy that provided effective and, most importantly, unleashing some very high impact new applications in the oil industry," end of quote. Engineer Nnamchi has also lived and worked in Egypt, Pakistan, Oman, and India as a field engineer with Schlumberger. He now has a total of more than 20 years of work experience in the oil and gas, mining, and technology sectors. A tested and proven entrepreneur, having also run his own business in Singapore for 10 years, Mr. Nnamchi is a member of the board and co-founder of Akara A, an organization championing social change through education. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Electronic and Electrical Engineering with first-class honors and a Master of Science in Management of Technology. He is also an alumnus of executive management programs at Harvard, the National University of Singapore, Kellogg, and Wharton. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Engineer Chizi. He prefers to be called Chizi, by the way. Nnamchi. Sir, you are welcome. You have 20 minutes to share your thoughts with us on the theme of today's webinar. Go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
All right. So, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. I think I'm really honored to be part of your panel. The first speaker has really put on a beautiful idea, and I think that's why we're here. I would like to, first of all, apologize that I did not have the bandwidth to get a proper presentation put together. I like to do that always. But that I did the next best thing to get quickly to this topic. So, you've heard my background. What you've not heard is the passion that I have for our country called Nigeria. Not many people would move from Singapore where everything works, where the workers just do what needs to be done, what they're told to do. You plan, you execute. the government plans, they execute year on year. I've seen several 15-year plans updated every 5 years by this Singapore government, executed to a T with beautiful results. So no surprise that people around the world talk about Singapore, and it commands a lot of respect. But I have moved from Singapore. I live in Lagos now. I am speaking to you from Lagos, Nigeria, where I call home now with my wife. There's a reason for that. As we say in Nigeria, it get why. So I believe basically this country can be powerful, will be very powerful, and that it is up to us Nigerians who have the capabilities to make that happen. Okay, so we have to build better for our children. Now, so what did I do? I asked AI, my Meta AI, 3 questions. Yeah. So the first was, AI, you are the minister in charge of job creation in Nigeria. Summarize the strategies you will prioritize to drive job growth in the country. And within 10 seconds, it came back with 10 key points. It says, as the minister in charge of job creation in Nigeria, my strategies to drive job growth would include, number 1, diversify the economy. Yeah, encourage growth in sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and services, and reduce dependence on oil. We know that is going on. Number 2, investing in infrastructure. Okay. 2, develop transportation networks, energy, and telecommunications to attract businesses and create jobs. Okay, in the US, when they want to kick up job creation, they invest in infrastructure, renew infrastructure, etc. So number 3, promoting entrepreneurship, support startups, SMEs, through funding, mentorship, and training programs. These are not my answers, by the way. These are the answers from AI, okay? From Meta AI. And there's a reason why I chose this approach to the meeting or to the presentation, okay? So number 4, workforce development. Invest in vocational training and education to equip Nigerians with in-demand skills. None of this is new. These are just really standard template solutions, go-to solutions. Number 5, agricultural development. Okay, enhance farm-to-table value chains and encourage agribusinesses to create jobs in agriculture. The largest employer sector in Nigeria is agriculture. Okay, then number 6, it says digital economy, foster the growth of Nigeria's digital sector. Then tourism development, okay, invest in tourism infrastructure. And then number 8, promote private partnerships. Number 9, labor market reforms, okay, implement policies to improve the business environment and attract foreign investment. And then job creation programs. Okay, so if you notice that these are strategies that have already been discussed so many places, so many times, so many ways, and there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah? So my next question to AI was, why is the Nigerian government not doing these things? And the machine replied that the Nigerian government has indeed implemented some of these strategies, but the pace and effectiveness of implementation vary. You don't know, these guys can be a little, use diplomatic language, which I found quite interesting. So it says challenges like number one, corruption diverts resources and hinders effective policy implementation. Number two, political instability. Frequent changes in government and priorities slow down progress. If you look at countries, I think the previous speaker mentioned them, that have really sustained growth for long periods. In China, the leaders stay, 10 years minimum. In Singapore, and it's the same Communist Party. So policy consistency is there for a long time. In Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was there for 25 years, right? And it's still the same party years after he's gone, okay, after he stepped down in charge. Okay, in Rwanda, that is next, our neighbor here in Africa, the stability is there due to continued longer-term leadership in place. Yeah, so political stability is important. Then number three, limited resources. Of course, insufficient funding and insufficient infrastructure hinder progress, or hinder implementation rather. Then you have bureaucratic red tape, competing interests, lack of capacity, then security challenges. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are not my answers. These are AI response. The question of why is the Nigerian government not doing these things? Okay. I'll soon run through my last question to AI workers. What trade policy changes will drive growth in Nigeria? So, and the response is trade policy changes that can drive job growth in Nigeria include diversification, encouraging exports beyond oil, right? By incentivizing non-oil sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and services. I will talk a bit more to these points, okay? Because there are practicalities to, I'll get to what AI doesn't tell us or cannot do for us, yeah? So policy change, trade agreements are good. Trade agreements like the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is a big deal we can really tap into. The AGOA agreement with the US for duty-free export is another big deal, right? Other policy around export processing zone, import substitution, tariff reform. So it's suggesting to adjust tariffs to protect local industries and encourage foreign investment. But what we do instead is to ban and prohibit. Yeah. And when you ban and prohibit, you expect that, industry should flourish. No, what happens is we consumers in Nigeria end up paying the highest prices for those items. We pay the highest price in the world for noodles and for cement. These are just two examples. So there are better solutions, yeah? Then one important key one that AI reported is the simplification of trade procedures. Yeah, and so on. So, and then it talks also about capacity building. So my brothers and sisters of this panel, just excuse me for a moment while I make adjustment video here. You can see that the technical solutions and reasons are there. We're not looking at a big mystery. No, it is not a big mystery. And having these discussions. Okay? What can be done? What must be done? And how do we find the will to move this needle forward? So I have two areas that I want to touch on. One is, what can you do as an individual or as a business owner or as an investor living overseas, diaspora, Nigerian, etc.? What can you do to drive employment? Yeah. Previous speaker talked about 42 million businesses, small businesses. It's a lot of small businesses over there, everywhere, a ton of them. If each of us can just do what I call it the candlelight analogy. And that is part of the reason I'm here, because a lot of people say, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. You know, you're one person, you can only do so much. Well, if you are in a warehouse that is dark warehouse, pitch black, and one person lights a candle, and then another person lights their own candle, and then the more people that light their candle, the more we drive out the darkness. So whatever you can do in your little space, you have to. This is not theory. It's just practical. If you can send money to your relative to start a business, do so. If you can offer them training opportunities, do so. Yeah? If you can encourage them to hang on, because getting a loan from a bank is like pulling teeth. And even when you get the loan, you're going to pay 30+%. Well, step in to that gap. Yeah, because the challenges and the practicalities of doing things in Nigeria are so daunting. It's almost that we wish to visit violence on ourselves daily. So I'm sorry, I'm not taking a fairly technical approach. AI can do that. Okay? That while we are busy fighting for daily bread, the world is moving on, and is moving on fast, very fast, to the point that not just artificial intelligence, but applications supported by artificial intelligence that make life so much easier, make jobs so much easier, production much higher, and goods so much cheaper, and solve so many problems. So we have to move quickly. We have to move quickly. This is not, the situation is critical. Someone says that Nigeria is always at the edge of the precipice, but somehow we reach that edge and we never tip over, just somehow roll back. I think it's time we actually get over, jump over that precipice and fly, because the situation is critical, really critical. People are not just hungry, people are getting very, very desperate. And it's a sorry thing to say that instead of moving forward, we have been going backward. So that's not the debate. We need to solve the problem. So whatever you can do in your little space, please do so. And I think one of the takeaways for the organizers is that, particularly for diaspora Nigerians who get traumatized trying to do good in Nigeria, because you get a lot of trauma comes with being disappointed, being lied to, deceived, exploited, and so on. abused, trying to help your people. That happens a lot. We hear a lot of those stories. So one of the takeaways I'll suggest is that we try to pull together a group or some advisory team that can, a network that can just help either diaspora Nigerians that want to return or want to invest or want to support to make clear and better decisions. Yeah, maybe more informed and have better due diligence in the things they do and get better advice. Okay, make their landing a bit easier and softer. And this is not talking about me personally. Of course, my own personal experience has been a bit managed. Starting with DHL logistics work, which gave me a soft landing, and then my business as well, etc. I'm just saying we can attract more investment from Nigerian diaspora. We minimize the risk for them, reduce the risk and exposure. Okay. Now, the other part to the solutions, of course, the big part, the one that can have massive impact, are government solutions, government-driven solutions. And I'm talking about those as secondary because, to be frank, it's touch and go. Okay, but Nigeria has some massive comparative advantages in a few sectors. Really massive comparative advantages. Okay, internally, there are regions in Nigeria that have comparative advantage in a few areas. Some regions have cassava, yam, some regions soybean, cotton, some regions palm. If you take palm alone, palm oil, okay, I know one company in Nigeria, they manufacture soap, 98% raw materials locally, turnover 26 billion, and growing quite fast, large input from palm oil. Okay, there's no reason why they cannot be exporting. So there are opportunities. We have comparative advantage in specific sectors, and I think it's up to our government and for private sector perhaps to tap into those areas where we are very strong. Okay, we're the largest producer of cassava in the world. Cassava starch and derivatives of cassava starch have massive industrial applications. Yeah, so there's a lot that we can do. But the government needs to first and foremost solve the security problem. Without security, it's very difficult to move anything else. Okay, if there's no security for farmers, they cannot function. Jobs will still be lost. Okay. Secondly, I think focusing on agriculture as a sector, mechanized agriculture will create jobs, but also increase productivity a lot. Nigeria has less than 50,000 tractors. India has 4.7 million tractors. We can do better. A lot better. Yeah. But the challenges of moving these programs forward. So I will round up. I want to put a practical angle to this, that skills development is a cornerstone, but it's a long-term game. Yeah? We can export a lot more agriculture. We can export labor in a strategic way, not just in a Japa way. in a calculated, strategic way. And we can export labor that lives in Nigeria and earns US dollars. We make that on a massive scale. Yeah, but it takes skills development.
Thank you so much, Engineer Namchi. We are so grateful. I cannot take questions. I'm so sorry. It's already past 9. My guy is telling me that we have to round down this thing, but we are not done yet because we want to give the audience a chance to speak up. So we're going to take a short break. Do stay with us. We will be back after these 2 adverts from 2 of our sponsors. Thank you. Thank you so much, Engineer Namchi. Thank you. We have the adverts now, the Global Lights adverts and the My AI adverts. Thank you.
Welcome to Maya Robotics. We offer a range of AI-powered tools to help enhance your productivity and provide personal assistance. I'm Maya, your personal AI assistant. With our personal assistant tools, you can train your AI to understand your preferences and needs, allowing it to assist you with tasks such as paying bills, online shopping, calendar management, research, and more. As an education and study assistant, our AI agent provides personalized learning experiences using intelligent tutoring with adaptive learning systems that focus on areas of weaknesses for improvement. Our AI-powered sales agents can help drive sales through business websites, guiding customers to make informed purchasing decisions. To learn more about My AI Robotics AI solution, visit www.myairobotics.com.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going into an open discussion where you can bring on your contribution. But before you start to raise your hands, I have 2 persons who have made comments that I would like them to bring up by themselves. The first person is Kachi Okeze. Mr. Okeze, could you please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak?
Oh, hi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm afraid it went on a bit longer than I thought, but very insightful presentations, and also particularly that have given us things to think about, quite a lot of issues. This is an area that I'm particularly interested in and have been involved in back, right from my MBA days over nearly 2 decades ago, where I focused on supporting MSMEs in Southeast Wales. So I have a template, I have a basis for comparing our approach to MSME support in Nigeria. One of the things that keeps popping up for me, there are so many issues, we don't have that amount of time, but I use the term, cognitive dissonance when it comes to policymaking. I have written about this. I have an MSME magazine that I publish. It's online. The thing about how we approach this, a bit like so many other things that we do in Nigeria. You have a situation where government policy does not reflect the real needs and therefore cannot deliver the desired solutions from get-go. I'll give you 2 examples. MSMEs, evidence, research upon research in Nigeria has shown that the priority when it comes to funding support for MSMEs in Nigeria is that MSMEs need grants, particularly at the micro end, the lowest end of the spectrum, not loans. MSMEs desperately need grants. That's the support they need. But for some reason, government, in the past, and it's continued, has always held on to this idea very firmly when it comes to MSMEs. There's this ideational transfixion with the idea of loans. And when loans are delivered, ostensibly for the purpose of MSMEs, for some strange reason, they are delivered or channeled through the commercial bank. I got involved in it in 2013. It's been like that. That is a system that is designed never to work. It will never work. It never works. It didn't work in China. It didn't work in Indonesia. It didn't work in Pakistan. Even in the UK where I am. It doesn't work that way. Commercial banks have an interest in their lending. Therefore, they're never, ever going to prioritize your single-digit lending over theirs. They've got their products to sell. And government mandates them to give loans, whether it's through Smithon, or that's why Smithon has been trying to become a commercial bank itself, or develop a bank itself. It's because of that reason. So that's one of them. The idea of grants, I've written about this, we've talked about this. The idea of grants for MSMEs is what China used to build the behemoth that he has built in industrialization. Other countries have done so, and many are doing the same. That's what they do. I've asked Nigerian policymakers at different levels, up to ministerial level, what is the problem? What is the reason why you are so, you have this problem with giving grants to MSMEs? Two reasons. One, what if they run away with it? Okay. Second reason, the WTO rules against state aid. Let me address those two reasons as I have addressed them in the past. Those two reasons are just mere silly excuses. There are no reasons. The same people, the central bank that has been handling government intervention funds, that's the central bank, the same central bank that gave out 6.2 billion naira as intervention funds to the textile industry and to aviation, knowing quite well that none of those guys were going to pay back. The whole money was frittered away. They vanished with it. Now AMCON was set up to go and recover. They're still recovering. Even AMCON itself is going down as well. So why is it that they're happy to give grants to those, big players, but not to small businesses? Flag that somewhere. Second question then is, what about getting the small businesses to stand on their own individually? Now, this first speaker this evening came in to speak about MSMEs as a whole, but I think the presentation kind of veered away from that and went into supporting employment. In other words, existing businesses. That's okay, no problem with that. But the priority for Nigeria, given the unprecedented levels of unemployment, is to get everybody into the loop of employment. And the definition is that of economic in their own community, so that they can take people around and show them you train them, certify them. You have made them potentially self-employed people by definition, both the World Bank. So you have done that. Those are the practical things that need to be done. So number one, as I said, government policy needs to understand that grants.
We have to let somebody else speak. Please understand.
Okay, sorry, I can hardly hear you. Yeah, that's fine. So those 2 points.
I'm not going to call upon Aisha Digil. Did I get that right? Please, could you unmute yourself and put your video on so we can see you and hear you? Aisha, are you there? Okay, if Aisha has left us, Dr. Henry Clark, you came on before. Would you like to speak? Dr. Clark? Would you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, madam. Am I unmuted? Am I unmuted?
Yes, please go ahead. 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. 2 minutes. I'm going to say that a concerted effort, which is a combination of the private sector, civil society, and government, should come together to enhance growth and development of key transformation sectors that promise growth. And then these ones focus on, there is quite a lot, I will say a lot of patient and affordable capital out there that is waiting to just pour into Nigeria and exploit those opportunities and create employment channels for the young people, the youth, and the unemployed, including MSME growth. I will say that Dali is one of those institutions born in Africa, in Uganda, and is investing massively in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. That was well spoken and very brief. I see your question, AG2 Isong. How do I get the part of the presentation that I missed? Just go to the YouTube channel. It will be there in a few days. And then, Oyeniyi, I think, discipline and focus on government policy is key. Thank you for that comment. I think we can now take Zainab. Zainab, your hand is raised. Would you like to speak now? Unmute yourself and put on your video so we can see.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And there are two things I always discuss in every platform. I find my opportunity to add, my voice. With my experience, I have experience on the bench as a judge, and then now with the IT agency. And the two things I usually say we need in Nigeria, because we already have the policies put in place. And yeah, we can swear, we can try to redefine the policies, we can try to fit in at every given time, but then the foundation, because when we look at every country that is growing, that we tag as the developing nation, they've done the basics. So the basics is what I understand what the second speaker said about talking about what's it called, that we need to when he checked on AI and AI said infrastructure. That cannot be overemphasized, because we still struggle about light and road in Nigeria. And coming here to Canada, schooling here, I understand the power that every province has. And that is why I keep saying we are giving power to the federal government, and then we forget the work that the federal system of government, which we are operating, where every state should be able to drive policies, drive, laws to grow their own state. So which states can we categorically say, okay, this state is functional? Categorically say that the economic, let's keep Lagos aside, and possibly maybe we'll put Port Harcourt and Kano, which are not still out of the way about the problem of basic amenities in rural areas. So at the end of the day, I just always streamline it to two things. Let's talk about our governance. Governance now is the structure that is put in place by the Constitution. It talks about every state can make policies, every state can make laws for themselves. So let's hold the government accountable from the local government to the state before we get to the federal. And then the second one, we're going to build transparency, and that is where technology comes in. Because sometimes when I'm sitting in court, litigants will come and tell you that they were unable to get a bike because the road is not motorable. And then I understand the power that technology can help advance these issues we're talking about. Lincoln Yu was able to do it when he put three things in place. He put in transparency, accountability, and the judicial system. So I feel There's good collaboration now. I'm here. Look at how the power of the the people who want Nigeria to work are many. The people who don't have hope in Nigeria, honestly, to me, I feel are few. So if we can start from building a system of accountability and a structural system of holding from the local to the state government, because you see a councillor, when he comes to power, you understand what he's trying to push for. So we are going to push, what is that economic thing that a Benue state is good in, that we can do it in a sufficient level, that Benue state can possibly feed others. There will be more entrepreneurs. And if you are good in agriculture, even if you stay in, let's say, for instance, you stay in Bayelsa, if you are good, you'll be able to have collaborators in Benue and work within Nigeria. Like Mr. Kayode said, he said, we need to energize our economy internally so that we could export it. I love that sentence. So if we don't do it from the state level, local government, and we're capitalizing, everybody wants it at the top, everybody wants to just, it gets so complex. And that is why we're not still getting it. We're having a lot of,
Thank you, Brenda. We feel your pain, we feel your passion. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call Mr. Kayode Aladeshi because it looks like his hand is raised up. Would you like to go ahead and speak, sir?
I'm going to address several comments with this single answer.
Okay.
Everybody continues to refer to government. We have a group of people in government that act as if they are immovable objects in the way of progress. Therefore, a problem solver doesn't continue to run against the immovable object. You either get around it or you trick it into getting out of your way. Everybody wants to deal with government. If you listen to my plan very carefully, the only thing I ask government to do is provide job credit. Everything else is taken care of by the market itself. People hiring, people selling their tax credit, putting the money into their business. Government is not involved in any way, shape, or fashion. When it comes to the 5 million trainees that we want to develop, the government is providing funding. People are concerned about corruption and all of these things. That's why I said, if this program will be implemented, it needs to be a task force and kept out of the reach of civil service so you can eliminate corruption. You've got to figure out how to get around the issues and not bump your head against the issues. Everybody keeps talking about this government. And one thing that's very important that I want to mention that we want in our country will happen naturally without any of us pushing it on the government. And I will explain to you this way. When you create 70 million jobs that don't have to vote based on the hunger in their stomach and begin to vote based on the knowledge in their minds, we will change government. Because they will vote right. So all of the things that we're pushing and fighting for will be taken care of if people have money and they're no longer selling their votes for food. Those things will come. They will vote out bad politicians. They will vote in competent people. Competent people will come into government. So let's stop fighting wars. One thing I learned a long time ago is never to get into a fight I can't win. I just avoid the fight or I get around it. So my whole thing is anyone creating policies, creating plans, creating strategies must first and foremost put in mind that the government we have in place is an immovable object. Us having meeting and say government need to do this policy, government need to, we know already that they're not going to move. But the day the people can vote with their head and not their stomach, every change that we want will fall in place. Let's create
Thank you
jobs.
so much. Thank you, sir. I'm going to take one more person only because we are really, really running out of time. Efe, you spoke earlier. You made a comment earlier. Would you like to speak up now? You're the last person I'm giving a chance. Efe Usi. I hope I got that name right. Are you there, Efe? If not, we are rounding down now. Are you there? Or Aisha? Aisha, I gave you a chance to speak before, but I'm not sure if you would like to take up that chance. If not, we're rounding down. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this very exciting
Mr. Olatunji, you want to speak?
Business Talk. I appreciate the opportunity. I know that I speak for all of us when I say a big thank you to the council by Engineer Titus Olowokere for a rewarding time spent this Sunday evening. Well, the curtain drops for me here, but do not go away. The next voice you will hear after this timeout is from Mr. Joseph Oyedino, who will give the closing remarks. Thank you so much for attending. See you in 2 months. Have a good evening.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the great webinar. It's been very informative. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We believe you have all enjoyed this event. We encourage attendees of this event and also members of the US-Nigeria Business Council to collaborate and partner with one another in their quest in promoting job creation initiatives in Nigeria. We also want to encourage networking amongst the attendees and members of US-Nigeria Business Council in promoting job creations in Nigeria. We believe you have all enjoyed the event this evening. The next event is on the 18th of August, 2024. Finally, I would like to thank all the speakers, Mr. Alagis Shui of Maya Technologies, and also Mr. Chizi Namchi and the MD of CEO Nabiru Industrial Company Limited. I also want to thank the organizers also. And finally, I would like to thank you all for being with us this evening and also for helping us to make this event a grand event. I thank you all for attending. God bless you all. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Okwe. Sorry, they couldn't take your question and then your comments. Dr. Kazim Bello, you also wanted to make a comment, but the
I just wanted to. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make a brief comment based on she said, and picking up from what Dr. Clark said as well. One of the challenges that we have around SMEs and unemployment in Nigeria is because there are quite a number of dimensions to those issues. Some of it is social, some of it is cultural. But the social element is also the solution to it, especially if we do not want to involve, if we do not want civil servants getting into it or politicians getting into it. But because of the challenges about handling such a problem, you also need some structures that may involve government. But key to the implementation of all this, of that solution, is to drive it through communities. Now, if you're going through communities, of course, there'll be involvement of government along the lines. But it is more about getting people to take ownership of the challenges within their communities. If they are sufficiently conscientized about the challenge in their community, whether it is unemployment, whether it's social vices, they can come together, form strategic groups to address those issues.
If we want to see that,
And
if we want to rise to become
okay. Oh, Barry.
Yeah, we can hear you now. I think the voice interruption has discontinued.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, the session is over, everyone. So we are in a free networking, mode right now. Please go ahead.
Okay, maybe I should just wait till 2 months' time to properly articulate the view, or post it on the platform later.
Okay, that sounds good. That's by the way, you have a point too. We are just in a networking mode.
Hello. Okay, I just want to go back to the presentation. I know that we're in networking mode, so this is also a call to action for further networking to be done. Mm-hmm. This conference has been very thought-provoking because it's addressed the challenges of the rising unemployment in Nigeria. Despite the country's robust economy, we're still lagged behind based on socioeconomic status, job creation, and also this dependency on government to provide jobs. So I'm so grateful for what Mr. Aladesuyi has proposed. He has proffered some solutions that are actually very disruptive in nature, but I think they're doable. And somebody said that it might take 10 years. Yes. The journey of 1,000 years should start with one step. So if we start little by little and see how we can influence our own environment, our own levels of framework, the people we can empower, the way we can create these jobs, focus on the middle class. Because if we have a wider middle class, the problem of the nation is solved. So these insightful discussions by our distinguished speakers, both Mr. Aladesuyi and I believe it's Mr. Chidi, if I'm saying that name correctly, they've been very, very informative, but it's now up to us to see how we can drive this. We have to drive this at the national level, as he said. And I believe that Lagos State might actually already be on the forefront of this. So if, people within this organization, the US and Nigeria Trade Business Council, could just come together and push this forward, or, NITCOM, whatever, we can get it to the presidency and now get the process started. So I want to call on us to take on our own role within the Nigerian community. Individuals who want to see, an improved socioeconomic status for our own people in Nigeria. Forget about the propensity about this reliance on oil. Let's build the middle class. Let's support the entrepreneurs. I know they've been going out. Nigerians are so resilient. I have never been so proud to be a Nigerian. With all that's going on, we still see people on the streets. We see some begging, but we also see some hustling and try to develop themselves, get into these different entrepreneurial skills. Mm-hmm. Let's help achieve that. That's all I'm asking for. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate the submission. So as we move forward, let's commit ourselves to implementing the ideas and strategies discussed today. It's imperative that policymakers, business leaders, and stakeholders collaborate to prioritize job creation initiatives that can provide meaningful employment opportunities for our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bello.
Yes, I'm actually on travel, and so I was untidy, and I seriously miss Dr. Coyote's presentation. I hope I can get the recordings thereafter. Yeah,
right.
I was already, as soon as I joined the Zoom, I was already informed that I may have missed the sweetest part of the presentation. But I was obviously very tired of. I couldn't take that, join the call as restricted. Anyway, I know what Dr. Kayode will represent, and I know precisely, I can relatively predict his mindset from what he has represented and what he had advocated for in the past. But I'm not going to start another round of speech here, but just to say something in that direction. One thing that we have to understand in that country is that the SME has a driven force. And to drive SME in an economy, no economy, and I repeat, no economy develops today without a vibrant SME.
Right.
Just enter any country. Enter any country that you can call a country that was a sort. What drives those countries are not the conglomerates, large multinationals. It is the SMEs.
Yes.
Because they droves in millions and they droves in number. They create employment and they generate a lot of opportunities and productivities. That is the epicenter of any economy. And unfortunately, we are not getting it right in Nigeria. The private sector people cannot sponsor SMEs. That's not their job. Private sector group will for you to be babysitting any company out there. And that is what SMEs is. You got to have to babysit them, monitor them, help them, give them resources, give them capacity, everything that they need in order to thrive. And when you do that, and I keep wondering, when I hear from Federal Inland Revenue Services talking about tax, you cannot generate tax from large corporation. Those large corporations, how much tax did they pay you? But the large chunk of taxes, for instance, in the United States, comes from the mom and pop shops and businesses. Those SMEs are the ones that drive the taxes. That's why you can propel and grow an economy. And there are only two groups that can do that. And until we have to drum it to the Nigeria, the people that can promote SME is the government. Government of that country have to strategically promote SME.
But Dr. Bello, the government put together SMIDEN, which I think has been given that particular mandate to grow the SME community in Nigeria and make them more profitable, even giving them grants. Do you think that has been successful?
Well, I don't know. There's a difference between doing something and trying to rub the surface of something.
That is correct. Dr. Lowokere, if I can address that.
Believe me, to me, SME and SMIDEN is rubbing the surface of the issue. Go back. Listen, I was in Abuja recently and I was in contact with some of the projects, the same thing that we are talking about we're doing. Trust me, those projects came out of the House of Representative members. They were not even targeting the people that we are talking about. Wow, they only interested in the project, the contract that goes with it. And I said, look at the same SMIDEN that people were trusting that we promote and protect the interest of this SME. Look at what they are doing. Contract scams. We have to get it right. No private sector group will go and fund SMEs. It is either the government or large foundation. When you go to all the other countries, a lot of foundation companies created fund SME to support them in training and logistics. Those are the people that can, no private individual. You go to, somebody said earlier on, you ask banks, there were SMEs to go to the banks to go and collect loan. For goodness sake, they cannot meet the criteria of the commercial banks. They cannot. And nowadays, even if they take a loan from the commercial bank, they cannot survive on those loans.
At the same time, if they just give them grants, there'll be no accountability
they give them a grant,
managing those grants.
Some loans that are almost less than 5% or 20%, even if it has to be loan. But look at one after the other. All those institutions that we have created in Nigeria to create that problem, they are all in shambles as of today.
Yeah, Mrs. Chosunde, what do you think? Do you share the same point?
Dr. Bello. No, I don't. I share the same point. Let me say this.
Okay.
Nigerian government has actually done something terrible to the SMEs. 2 months ago, they distributed 20 billion naira at a rate of 50,000 naira per SME. Please tell me, what business can do anything with 50,000 naira?
Little or nothing, absolutely nothing.
No, they have actually been funding entrepreneurs of necessity, people that we should be creating jobs for. They are giving them 50,000 naira to go buy food and feed their family, and they say they are funding SME. They're not funding SME. If they take that 20 billion naira and give 3 million naira to a handful of SMEs to create jobs, to grow their businesses and to succeed, we'll see the impact on the economy. So the government's approach towards SME is completely flawed. And Dr. Bello is correct on that.
Madam Shotunde, what do you think? I know you had your hands up a while back. Mary Terrace. Oh, she's not there.
We can't hear.
Yeah, but I kind of see this a little differently, though. Personally, I think the government has put a lot of structure in place to help the SME. I mean, besides the SMIDA, which I understand has not been performing so far, the DBN has also been put there to give single-digit loans to entrepreneurs that qualify. In my view, I don't think grants will really help the SMEs because it's like free money to them, and there's no accountability to how the funds to be disbursed. They're not well managed. We don't have good project management skills in most organizations, and these funds eventually will become mismanaged.
We have data that points us to those SMEs that are actually performing, which are shared today. PwC has data that show that 31% of those SMEs are growing and are performing as they should. It is the government's responsibility to identify which specific SMEs to fund to help with the economy, instead of just giving out 50,000 naira to of necessity. That's not how we're going to grow this economy. We're wasting resources. We're wasting money.
Mr. Idiro, you have your hand up too.
Yeah. My point
we're just in the free discussion mode and trying to brainstorm on where we go from here.
Yeah, where we go from here. Firstly, I know with INB that has been, there's now a platform for engaging a form of credit appraisal for SMEs from a credit standpoint. So I believe two things I believe in. I believe a lot in capacity development for SMEs, training. See, because if you don't have knowledge, even if you are given a soft grant or a cheap loan, you're going to waste the capital.
Exactly my point.
You're going to waste the capital. So the capacity development is number one.
Yeah.
You need to be trained how to run a business. So a lot of these SMEs, they also need to have mentors or mentoring groups for them to grow. But the wisdom, that capacity development is key, because if they don't acquire the business knowledge of how to grow, how to grow sales, how to minimize costs, how to maximize profit, recruitment of staff, things like that, they're going to fret away the capital resources.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Mr. Francis also has a hand up.
That capital development is very, very key for the SMEs. Extremely, So, but giving them funds, I believe that the government has to be tactical in doing that. So, for example,
completely.
if you have like a SMIDAN, but that SMIDAN, I wouldn't want them to operate like your standard commercial bank. I might want it to be like an SBA in the US. I might want it to be like like a US, SBA, small business, agency in the US, but a bit more flexible and obviously with soft collateral. How will I put schemes? So for example, if you have your NIN, BVN, all those things can form some kind of like soft type of security tied to the type of loans they have. Since they're going to be like directors of their businesses, they can give personal guarantees on all those their digital IDs that they've got. I'm talking about low-hanging loans, maybe 1 million, 2 million, or maybe up to about 5 million. Then when
which makes more sense. Which makes more sense than that makes more sense than some stupid 50,000 naira that doesn't go anywhere.
50,000 naira is nothing. For me, 50,000 naira. For me, 50,000 naira is just for you to go for capacity development.
That's even insulting.
No, they spend it on grocery. What are you talking about? They go to the store and buy food.
That's nothing. So for me, that capacity development is key. So for you to get money, for you to say we're going to give you any brand, soft loan, you must attend a capacity development program.
Which, in fairness to the government, though, Mr. George, I'll call you next. In fairness to the government, though, I remember during the what do you call it? What they say CBN intervention. I forgot the name, but during that period, it was required for the beneficiaries to attend some training sessions, and they educated them on how they could manage the loans and help them to manage the projects. I forgot the name of that fund.
And for me, if you're going to give any
Anchor Borrower Program, that's what it is. Anchor Borrower Program.
There's also CBN intervention funds. But for me, apart from the capital development program, any entity that is given a loan or grant or form should have some kind of account officer that will be like a business mentor, people that are monitoring all those capital that is being allocated to them. As far as I'm concerned, the government don't have enough money to drive SMEs at the moment. Because for me,
Mr. George,
Joe.
Yeah.
Hello,
Mr. George. Let's hear from Joe. He has to signed up for a long time, if you don't mind.
The Development Bank of Nigeria was actually what J.O. just referenced right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Development Bank of Nigeria was actually set up to deliver that. Okay. The idea was to engage a number of SMEs, screen them for capacity.
Right.
Through a process of training, of capacity building and capability building over a period of time before funding them. And the process is supposed to take between 6 months to 18 months, depending on how strong the SME is. The handholding period is not supposed to extend beyond 18 months.
Okay.
But the least amount of time was supposed to take about 6 months. I was actually part of the strategy team that developed the Development Bank of Nigeria under Jonathan when it was launched. But it did not effectively take off until when Buhari took over. But the dynamics changed at that time, and I think they've lost the original vision. So I think we also tried to do something with the Bank of Industry along those lines. But Bank of Industry and Sweden chose to go in another direction. They partnered with Lagos Business School, but without the components of what we agreed was going to happen under Development Bank of Nigeria. But like what Gio said, it is going to be extremely difficult to have strong SMEs who can build or who can compete globally if they do not have if they are not strong enough, if they are not conscious enough exactly the kind of product or the service that they're going to offer, and how they can manage their finances to scale within the appropriate time.
Yeah.
So they need they need a mentor, a coach, a trainer who is going to through that process until the exit point, which is maximum 18 months.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Ganiu Dada, you are in the house. I don't know if you have anything to say too. Mr. Dada is one of our experienced international.
Listen, we have a short time to do what needs to get done. This country is on the edge of the mountain, about to tip over. Everything that we're talking about is fantastic, but we don't have the time for it. So we need to look at data to make decisions. We already know there's 31% of these SMEs that are stable. They represent 12 million SMEs.
Wow.
These 12 million SMEs can drive Nigeria's economy. Let's focus on them and create jobs for the entrepreneurs of necessity. Let's give them jobs. Let them go away. Because all they're doing is they're taking our time, our resources, our energy, and they're wasting it. Let's focus on 12 million SMEs that can hire 2-3 people, that can grow, that can pay taxes, that can get off the ground. We don't have time. Nigeria is at a major risk. The youth are unemployed, they're in yahoo, they're in cultism, they're in drugs, they're in everything. Nigeria is about to tip over. We don't have time. We need to use data for
Mr. Francis George, I think you had your hand up too. Thank you, Mr. Ladeshi.
Yes.
We're just trying to brainstorm here.
Thank you so very much for your patience too. For me. In all of the discussions, one of the things I've always advocated for, we know we have so many SMEs, so many agencies of government put in place for this creation of employment and the rest of them. But let me tell you, if we leave it in the hands of only the agencies in Nigeria without a co-option of the diaspora, it will always be a failure. And I say this because of some of the experiences some of us have had. I deliberately brought in somebody into this meeting today who has been in the humanitarian ministry for a long time and has been a part of them system, and she understands because that ministry was actually set up.
Once we got the person, it was
for generation of employment and alleviation of poverty via employment, just like what lofty ideals and ideas of government will not work if we leave it in the hands of only people here without the diaspora. And that's because for so many reasons. Oftentimes you realize that the members of National Assembly here and there are involved in some of these things, and they bring in bogus names that are non-existent, even if they're existing. With their BVNs and the NINs, it's not going to be useful. That I can tell you confidently. And so for me, one of the best things is when these things are being set up, there has to be a situation whereby people in diaspora must be co-opted into it because, one, you have a system out there where you cannot taint your hand, you cannot stain your hands. And so it is very important that they are involved in all of these things if you want it to work at all. That's the only way. Any other thing, forget it. So many times they will tell you, bring 100 names, bring 300 names, bring 500 names. Let me tell you, the BVNs, the NINs will be made available. And when you disburse 50,000, 20,000, 50, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 will yield nothing in this country of today. And that's not that government is not trying. There may be good intentions, but there will always be one or two persons there who will bring it down. So for me, whatever we do, there has to be a co-option of all intelligent people from Nigeria and from different parts of the world who will be a part of it to drive it together, to bring it to a complete fruition, and then to be a successful one. I think in the course of all of this, I've invited the young lady to join the Business Council. With your permission, I'll let her, if it's feasible. She will contribute a lot because they've gone around Nigeria. They've seen the poverty. Look, this country has, whatever anybody says, one of the highest rates of poverty in the world. Not until you move around. If we speak on screen, we speak good English and the rest, you will not go in the midst of these people. And I'm telling you, the best means is, I will say it again and again, co-opt some members of this diaspora into these commissions or agencies to drive it, and with terms and templates that it must be delivered this way or that way. And then you bring up, just, I think so many people have said the same thing here. Some of these SMEs can come together and, you know, give them reason. If you come up with 21 billion, imagine what some organizations will do with 10 billion if they come together to realize something with different and divergent ideas. So for me, that's the little I want to contribute to this. But for me, you must be co-opted people in diaspora with people in Nigeria. Of course, not all Nigerians are bad. Not all the people in-house are bad. So for me, we just need to do, we have the heart. Look, I've been around the world. I was in Korea for the last 2 years. I've been to South Korea almost 6 times. The last 2 years. And then sometimes I want to weep for Nigeria because that's a country that doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And yet, they produce refinery equipment, materials, and all for it. So there are people that are seriously employed.
Yeah.
We are still groping in the dark and still struggling. It makes you want to weep when you speak from the US and different parts of the world. The gentleman from Singapore, he said something, a lot of it. Mr. Ladusi has said so much. It is time for you to insist on being a part of these programs, because I know with you, there'll be achievements and successes. Sorry to have taken too much time.
Oh, no, thank you. Mr. Famuriwa, you have your hand up. Mr. Famuriwa was an anchor with CNBC, so it's a media veteran. Mr. Famuriwa, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much. And good afternoon, good evening to everyone that is still on the call. Well, actually, I was going to ask, I asked a question which I posted about how we can co-opt the diaspora in a very organized way, methodical way. But I wanted to also bring up the point about whether or not, whether the role of the media in trying to drive many of these things forward. We've seen obviously that the media can cast the spotlight on big issues. So maybe some thoughts on how one can be a little more calculated about using the media to drive change in Nigeria. I just thought perhaps I should bring that up to hear what other people think on this. I guess I've raised 2 points, so I guess I'll throw this to the floor to hear reactions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Famuriwa.
In my opinion, the media can be helpful in publishing some of these ideas, because a lot of times, one thing that I've noticed, this particular government, and maybe the last one, are very, they're no longer as differential to public opinion as they used to be. They seem to react somewhat with things that impact the decisions that they are making. And so if the media can highlight the things that they could be doing right, that they could do, that can influence change, that they are not doing, it can be very helpful.
Well, Mr. Ladusi, what about the notion, the understanding, or the widespread perception that the media has been bought over by the government, and the media is just, sucking up to a gallery, that the independence they used to enjoy, being the fourth estate of the realm, has been lost? What do you say to that? I don't know if they actually adequately represent.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this. In defense of the media, I expressed my admiration for Honorable Minister Bosun Tijani. But when he got into AI, I published a very scathing article about him and my disagreement with him with regards to AI. Because in my opinion, AI presents an existential threat to Africa, in case many of us don't know.
Did you say existential threat?
Existential threat to Africa. We are celebrating.
You, the proponents of AI, I'm kind of surprised. I'd love to hear that.
Yes, you should be surprised. And here is my argument regarding AI in Africa.
Okay.
When you look at the way the Western cultures want to use AI, it presents a danger to Africa. Because they're looking at AI replacing their dwindling population. Their manpower is going down. They're going to fill it in with AI. Africa is a bastion of human population in the future. If we allow them to push AI on us, if you think we have unemployment now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Mr. Kayode Ladeshui, you are also, I'm afraid to say, a proponent of that same
I'm very practical about AI. There are ways that Africa can benefit from AI. Dredging our waterways, dredging our mining facilities to make sure people don't get trapped. AI can do a lot of things for us. But if we start looking at the way the West want to use AI, they want to use AI to work in the factory when we have huge unemployment. Are we going to tell our kids to sit on the street corner while AI is working in the factory? I wrote an article that Africa as a continent needs to get together and really aggressively engage in intertrading so we can continue to use human labor for the things that we need. AI is good in a lot of ways that can help Africa. Our unemployment rate is just moving in a different direction. They're losing population. Their population is shrinking. They're moving towards software. And now, instead of coming to us to make the product, because they're going towards software, they now want to build AI to do all the production for them.
But Mr. Ladeshui, sorry, I know we're going to wrap up in a minute, but I'd like to just challenge you to explore how AI can be used in the job creation drive. In the job attrition drive.
For example, I'm working with the mining industry in Nigeria to use AI to target specific areas where they can excavate much more easily than areas that they cannot, to avoid dangers in the mining fields, and that will eventually lead to hire more people to work in the mining space. So I am working with the mining industry now.
Great.
In Nigeria to do those kind of things. But we need to remember that we have such a high unemployment rate. We cannot allow Elon Musk to send his robots to Africa.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been nice having a very good collaborative chat. And I guess we'll call it a day,
Thank you.
Mr. Esong,
pleasure meeting everybody.
something to say, Mr. Esong?
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of the day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you much, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Loka.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've really learned a lot. This is my first meeting here.
Great.
It's very inspiring what I have heard. And I think what Mr. Deboyo and the other speakers said are very doable. And Africa cannot love itself more than any other continent. Nigerians must do their work by themselves.
Absolutely.
And I would really like to network with this group. I've been inspired, and what they have said resonates with me. And it is doable. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I've been so enriched by what has come forth tonight. Thank you so much. I look forward to being part of this.
Yeah, please feel free to check up our website, and we look forward to engaging with everyone a little further. Mr. Ladeshui, the speakers, and all the vibrant voices in the house who are willing and determined to make a change in our community. We're going to make it. And this is the country we have. No, not the only country, but this is our our heritage. And we are eternally indebted to that heritage.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Sure, you too.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.